Alright, South by Southwest is here, and there are many films and television shows that are premiering at the festival, either world premieres or North American or state premieres. I was supposed to be there covering the festival, but unfortunately I couldn't make it out. Nonetheless, I wanted to cover some of the most anticipated films, potentially the best, most talked about films of the festival. Starting off with some quick honorable mentions, these are films that are not having their world premiere at South by Southwest. They've already played at another festival, but they're still worth mentioning. First, we have I Saw the TV Glow by Jane Schoenbrunn. The trailer for the film has just dropped. It premiered at Sundance, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make it while I was there, but the buzz around the film was pretty tremendous. This is the director behind We're All Going to the World's Fair, a kind of small, low-budget indie horror film that came out to very critical acclaim, and it looks like I Saw the TV Glow is also getting glowing reviews. It's an A24 film, and it is scheduled to come out into theaters on May 3rd. Another honorable mention comes from Sundance, which is the film Dee Dee. This film from director Sean Wang is a very intimate portrayal of coming of age and of dealing with identity, particularly cultural identity. The lead here, Isaac Wang, was really astounding, particularly when you consider his young age. I think of this film kind of as a hybrid between mid-90s and the kind of small Canadian project, Rice Boy Sleeps. It's emotional and it's a true, honest depiction of growing up. Next, we have our third Sundance film on the list. This one is Kneecap. What a wild ride this film is. I was able to chat with the cast and the director on the red carpet before the world premiere at Sundance, and they were hilarious. Essentially, this film follows the real-life rap group Kneecap, comprised of three members, Mowgli Bop, Mokara, and DJ Provi. And essentially, they are an Irish rap group, not just from Ireland. They're from the north of Ireland, but they rap mostly in the Irish language. This film was picked up by Sony Classics. It is full of debauchery, it's full of drugs, it is hilarious, it is emotional even, despite kind of this debaucherous front, and it is making waves around the world. Fourth honorable mention, moving away from Sundance, we have Sing Sing. This film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it has very early kind of Oscar buzz around Coleman Domingo's performance here. This film is essentially following a group of inmates based on the real group of inmates at the Sing Sing correctional facility, where they essentially use music kind of as a tool to improve themselves and to grow while incarcerated. As I mentioned, Coleman Domingo is the star here, coming off a great year where he led Rustin and also was very strong in The Color Purple. He is almost undoubtedly going to be taking home an Oscar in the coming years. While there isn't an exact release date nailed down, it's expected to come out in July 2024, again through A24. Our last honorable mention is a film called Cuckoo. This film stars Hunter Schafer of Euphoria fame. We essentially have a horror film. We have a haunted resort town. This one premiered at the Berlin International Film Festival to pretty mixed reviews, but it sounds like it will be a fun ride, entertaining, and as long as it knows what it is, it might still be worth a watch. This one is being distributed by Neon and scheduled to come out in theaters May 3rd. Alright, time to enter our top 10. Number 10 is The Fall Guy. Admittedly, I'm not personally too excited for this one, but I know that it will garner a pretty wide audience. It stars Ryan Gosling and is directed by David Leitch, who you probably know from films like Bullet Train and Deadpool 2. Essentially, we follow Gosling as a stuntman who is kind of reinvited onto a project with some old colleagues and friends after someone mysteriously disappears from set. Knowing Leitch, knowing Gosling, it'll probably be a mix of action and comedy, and while it might not be number one on my list, there are plenty of folks who will be dying to check it out. It's a big movie. It's being distributed by Universal Pictures, and is another one that is tentatively scheduled to come out on May 3rd. Number 9 is The Greatest Hits. This film comes from relative new director Ned Benson. He's known for creating an interesting pair of films titled The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, one film based from the female character's perspective and the other based from the male character's perspective. Because of this early creativity that we've already seen from Benson, I am looking forward to this film, even if the premise seems somewhat gimmicky. To begin with, essentially, we have Lucy Boynton, who is playing a character who can literally travel back in time through music. She co-stars with Justin H. Min, who I know from After Yang. He played Yang in that film, which is one of my favorite of the decade. I'm hopeful that this film will lean more into the subtle human side and less about kind of the crazy concept, but we'll see. As of right now, there is no set distribution for this film. Number 8 is Monkey Man. This movie is a project from first-time feature director Dev Patel, obviously very renowned as an actor and underappreciated at times. For example, I loved his project, The Green Knight, which wasn't seen by as many folks as it should have been just a few years ago. Essentially, this film is an action revenge style movie. Dev Patel starts out the film as this man who wears a gorilla mask, attends an underground fight club, and gets the crap beaten out of him every single night until he eventually goes on a revenge tour, a violent revenge tour. This is being released by Universal Pictures and is scheduled to come out April 5th. Number 7 is Roadhouse. This movie comes from director Doug Liman, who you probably know from some pretty large projects like Born Identity and The Edge of Tomorrow. He is certainly an accomplished and capable action director. This, of course, is a remake of the 1989 film with beloved Patrick Swayze. That original, quite frankly, is not that good, but there's hope here that this one might be better. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal as an ex-UFC fighter. He seems to be drawn to these combat sport roles recently. An ex-UFC fighter who starts a new career as a bouncer and then essentially gets caught up in a lot of stuff going around him, of course, leading to fights and violence. This is an Amazon production and is actually going to be coming out on Amazon Prime this month on March 21st. Number 6 is I Don't Understand You. This film stars Nick Kroll, who is one of my favorite comedians, and this is a comedy/horror film directed by Brian Crano and David Joseph Craig. Craig being a first-time director and Crano being a director with only one feature under his belt. Essentially, this film follows a couple on vacation, kind of close to adopting a child, when everything hits the fan. They're trapped in Italy, their marriage is crumbling, and the world is falling apart around them. This is an example of a movie that's still seeking distribution, so if it gets a strong response at South by Southwest, almost undoubtedly it will be picked up and released to theaters, when it could be late this year or 2025. Number 5 is my Dear Friend Zoe. Or Zoe, I actually haven't heard the film said out loud, I've only been able to read about it. This is, most importantly above all, the executive producing debut of beloved Taylor Swift boyfriend Travis Kelce. I know that probably shouldn't matter to anyone who really cares about film, but it does have practical implications. This film does not yet have a distribution deal, but having a name like Travis Kelce, who is tied to arguably the biggest star in the world, makes it easier to have people fill out the theaters and buy tickets. In all seriousness though, this film comes from director Kyle Hosman-Stoke, who is a military veteran. He enlisted in the Army about a month before 9/11 and then saw multiple deployments overseas, and this film follows someone who has returned from war, so clearly there are personal connections at play here. Essentially, it follows this military veteran as she's trying to build, repair, or save relationships with her family, but is plagued by the presence of one of her fallen comrades. Someone she served with has returned essentially from the dead. Number 4 is Arcadian. This movie comes from director Ben Brewer, who is not well established in the Hollywood scene, but he is a fairly accomplished director of music videos and actually was on the VFX team for the critically acclaimed and award-winning film Everything Everywhere All at Once. Arcadian stars Nicolas Cage, who is at the height of the Renaissance, Nick Cage Renaissance, having starred in some actually pretty decent films in recent years, including projects like Pig and Dream Scenario. In this film, we're set in the near future where the Earth has essentially been destroyed, more or less, and Nick Cage needs to survive alongside his 2 sons. Of course, they come across different people along the way, which throws curveballs toward their family. This one is scheduled to come out on April 12th, and then will also be available on Shudder. Number 3 is Y2K. This one comes from director Kyle Mooney, who rose to fame through Saturday Night Live, and is also produced by Jonah Hill. It is essentially a end-of-the-world comedy, very similar sounding, at least on the surface, to a project like This Is the End, which of course Jonah Hill featured in. This particular project stars Rachel Ziegler as she, again, tries to cope, survive with the impending doom of civilization. It's apocalyptic, sure, but knowing Mooney, it certainly will lean heavily into comedy. It's an A24 film, but there's no set release date yet. Number 2 is We're All Gonna Die. This is another film set in the near future from directors Freddie Wong and Matthew Arnold, both relatively newcomers to the scene. Essentially, a massive alien tentacle randomly appears, and then the characters have to go on a road trip in order to survive. So again, a bit apocalyptic, but there seems to be some strong comedic elements at play here as well. And number 1 is Civil War. It has to be Civil War. I personally am a big Alex Garland fan. Ex Machina is one of the strongest sci-fi films of the 21st century, in my opinion. Annihilation, also good, and actually I enjoyed Men for the most part, despite its pretty poor critical response. This is another A24 project. I know there's quite a few on this list, set in the relatively near future. Again, where we see a civil war erupting in the United States. Obviously, there are going to be some pretty strong political undertones here, and I'm guessing that on occasion they might be pretty overt as well. Garland is never one who has kind of strayed away from social commentary in his films. Still, when you look at the trailer, it looks pretty intense, it looks pretty action-packed, and that, combined with Garland's vision, makes it probable that it's going to be a pretty great film. As I mentioned, it's an A24 project, and it's scheduled to come out on April 12th. Thanks everyone for listening to this list. I wish that I was down in Austin, Texas to catch these premieres live, but hopefully I'll be able to catch a couple screeners and still be able to do some reviews. If you like this video, do the like thing, the subscribe thing, the comment thing, all of that helps me out and is always appreciated. Thanks.